I'll start with a little background. My name is Jake, and I've been married to my wife, Sarah, for 5 years. We met in college, and it wasn't long before we became inseparable. I guess you could say we were that couple people envied. At least that's what I thought. Looking back now, it's easy to see that I was blind to the signs. Things started to shift about a year ago. Sarah, who used to be all over me, suddenly became distant. She'd come home late from work, claiming she had to cover for a coworker or that they were going out for team dinners. I shrugged it off at first. I believed her. She had a great job in marketing and I was proud of her. But as time went on, I noticed other things. She started dressing differently, more stylishly, with clothes I didn't recognize. Makeup was more pronounced, and I could swear that she was putting more effort into her appearance than she had in years. One evening I came home early from work. I had planned a nice dinner for us, cooked her favorite dish, even opened a bottle of wine. But when I walked in, the house was empty save for some of her clothes strewn about. I texted her, figuring she was stuck in traffic. But when I didn't hear back, I felt a knot in my stomach. It was as if something was off, way off. That night I woke up around midnight and noticed her phone was buzzing on the nightstand. It was a message from a contact labeled Mike. I didn't think much of it at first. It could have been a work-related text, but when I saw the message, my heart sank. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. I miss you, babe. It was the babe that hit me like a punch to the gut. After that, everything fell apart. I started snooping around, something I'd never thought I'd do. I found more texts, photos, and even a few receipts for dinners at a posh restaurant I knew we'd never been to, where Mike was clearly the guest. The realization hit me like a freight train. My wife was cheating on me. I confronted her the next day. I was trembling with anger and hurt, but I needed answers. When I asked her about Mike, she froze and her face turned ghostly pale. I'll never forget the moment when the truth came spilling out of her, laced with the most outrageous excuses. "We're just friends, you know I love you," she insisted, but I could see the guilt in her eyes. She was caught and she knew it. Her explanations were pathetic. She claimed that I was too busy with work, that she needed someone to talk to. It felt twisted, like she was trying to spin the narrative that I had driven her to this. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I felt like a fool, like I had been living in a lie. The hurt transformed quickly into a bubbling rage. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. I thought about the countless nights I had spent waiting for her, the dinners I had made, the life we had built together, only to find out it was all a facade. I took a deep breath, trying to compose myself, but my heart was racing. I made a decision right then and there. This wasn't going to end with me just taking her back. No, I needed to make her feel what I felt. I didn't know how yet, but I was going to make her regret her choices. No more dinners together, no more cozy nights in. If she wanted to dine with her new lover, she could have her fun. I would take my revenge and show her just what she was losing. I wasn't just going to wallow in my pain. I was going to revel in my newfound freedom, starting with choosing better places to eat without her. The emotional weight was heavy, but the taste of revenge was sweeter than any dessert I could find in those restaurants. I just had to plan my next move carefully. After that explosive confrontation, I felt a whirlwind of emotions. I was angry, hurt, and utterly heartbroken all at once. But beneath it all, a strange clarity emerged. I had always been the supportive husband, the one who put my wife first, even when we were in a rough patch. But now it was time for me to prioritize myself. I wanted to escape the suffocating sadness and channel that energy into something different. I spent the next few days devising my plan. I needed to find a way to make her feel the sting of betrayal like I had felt. The idea was to immerse myself in a world of better experiences while she was off gallivanting with her lover. I knew she had a flair for the finer things in life, and I could use that against her. First things first, I updated my wardrobe. I tossed out my old t-shirts and jeans, replacing them with tailored shirts and smart shoes. I wanted to look good, not just for the sake of it, but to remind her of what she was missing, what she had thrown away for a sleazy restaurant owner. I also began frequenting the upscale dining spots around town, places that I had always wanted to try but felt guilty about because we were supposed to be a team. I would post pictures of my meals on social media, showcasing everything from gourmet dishes to cocktails with elaborate garnishes. I knew Sarah was still following me online, and I wanted those images to prick at her conscience. Let her see how I was living the good life she'd forfeited. As I started going out more, I met new people. I found myself drawn to a group of friends who shared a love for food, and we bonded over our weekend brunches and late-night dinners. They were a refreshing change from the stale routine I had with Sarah. I felt alive again, laughing, sharing stories, and even flirting a little. I discovered I had a certain charm that had been buried under the weight of my marriage. In the back of my mind, though, I was always aware of Sarah. She had attempted to reach out to me, of course. I ignored her calls and texts at first, letting her stew in the consequences of her actions. But when she showed up unannounced one evening, I realized I had to face her again. "Jake, can we talk?" she asked, her voice a mix of desperation and anger as she stood in the doorway of our home, which now felt more like a prison than a sanctuary. "Talk about what, Sarah? You already made your choices," I replied, leaning against the door frame with my arms crossed. I could see the guilt washing over her face, but I needed to keep my composure. I wanted her to see that I was no longer the man she could manipulate. "Please, I know I messed up. I'm sorry, I should have told you sooner. Mike means nothing to me," she pleaded, her voice cracking. "I want to fix this, I want you back." I fought the urge to roll my eyes. Her words felt rehearsed, thrown together merely because she was now on the losing side of this game. I took a deep breath, steeling myself against the wave of resentment that threatened to wash over me. "Fix it? You think you can just waltz back in and pretend like everything is normal? You've broken my trust, Sarah. How do you expect me to believe anything you say?" I shot back, my voice steady but firm. I could tell I was getting under her skin, and it felt good to see her squirm a little. She tried to negotiate, offering to go to counseling and promising that she'd cut ties with Mike for good. But I was done with the empty promises. I didn't want to go through some tedious cycle of therapy only for her to backslide again. I could tell she was panicking, her usual confidence replaced with desperation. As our conversation dragged on, I felt my resolve hardening. I didn't want to get back together, and I needed to make that clear. "Listen, I've been enjoying my life without you. It's liberating, and I'm realizing that I deserve better than what you gave me." I didn't know how she'd respond, but I could tell I had struck a nerve. Her face fell, and I could see the hurt in her eyes. But it was too late for sympathy. I had tasted the sweetness of my revenge, and I wasn't ready to go back. "Enjoy your life, Jake," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I hope you find happiness without me." I could see she was trying to keep her composure, but a part of me felt pity for her. I had once loved this woman wholeheartedly, but she had shattered that love into pieces. As she walked out, I felt a mixture of triumph and sadness. I had chosen to embrace my freedom, but the reality of our broken marriage still lingered. I knew the next step would be crucial. I felt like I was standing at a crossroads, but there was no going back. I had to fully commit to my newfound sense of self. And the social revenge I had begun to orchestrate was just the start. Would I be able to keep this up? Would she keep trying to win me back? I was determined to find out. With Sarah out of the picture, I plunged headfirst into my new life. It was exhilarating. I started spending more time at the upscale restaurants I had always wanted to explore. Each meal was an experience, not just sustenance. I discovered the joy of fine dining, every dish artfully presented, every flavor carefully crafted. I began to post my experiences online, sharing photos of gourmet plates and delicious cocktails. Friends started asking me for recommendations, and I felt a new sense of pride. Social media became my outlet, a canvas where I could showcase my transformation. I found myself getting attention from new friends and even a few potential dates. I didn't rush into anything serious. I wanted to savor my newfound freedom. Dinners turned into late-night escapades, and I often found myself laughing with people who saw me as a vibrant individual rather than just Sarah's husband. One weekend, I went to a food festival downtown. I bumped into a group of colleagues from my old job. We exchanged pleasantries and then fell into a lively conversation about restaurants and the best dishes we'd ever had. One woman in particular, Mia, caught my attention. She was lively and witty, with a contagious laugh that made me feel lighter than I had in months. As we chatted, I couldn't help but notice how comfortable I felt around her. I hadn't realized how much I craved genuine connection until then. We exchanged numbers, and a few days later, we set up a casual dinner. I knew I was taking a risk by dating so soon after the fallout with Sarah, but it felt right. I was ready to explore new connections, and Mia sparked something in me. But even as I began this new chapter, Sarah was not done with me yet. She swung by the apartment again, this time while I was getting ready for my dinner with Mia. I opened the door, and her eyes widened when she saw me dressed sharply, looking good. "Wow, I didn't realize you were going out," she said, the bitterness evident in her voice. "Yeah, I'm meeting a friend," I replied, trying to keep my tone casual. I could see the jealousy flickering in her eyes, and it felt like a small victory. "I just wanted to talk," she said, desperation creeping back into her voice. "We can work this out. I've changed, Jake, I promise." I felt a wave of frustration wash over me. "Sarah, you had your chance. You made your choices. You can't just expect me to forget everything because you decided you want me back." Her shoulders slumped, and for a moment I felt a twinge of guilt for being so harsh. But the anger bubbled back up. I wasn't going to let her guilt trip me into submission. "I miss you, Jake," she said softly, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I never meant to hurt you." "Then why did you?" I shot back, my voice rising. "You traded our life for a fling with a restaurant owner. You can't just erase that." I slammed the door in her face, my heart racing. The confrontation felt like a tempest, emotions swirling, and I was trapped in the eye of the storm. But as I got ready for my dinner, I felt a surge of determination. I wouldn't let her manipulation pull me back into her grasp. When I met Mia that night, I felt lighter. We chatted about everything: food, travel, our favorite movies. It was refreshing to be with someone who was genuinely interested in what I had to say. I could feel a connection building between us, and it was exciting. Every joke and shared story sent sparks through me, and for the first time in a long while, I felt hopeful about the future. As we wrapped up dinner, Mia suggested heading to a nearby lounge for drinks. I agreed, caught up in the moment. As we sat at the bar, sipping cocktails, I felt a thrill of exhilaration. Mia leaned in closer, and I found myself laughing freely, reminiscing about my past culinary experiences. The bartender was friendly, and we chatted about the menu, laughing as we tried to guess the ingredients in a complex cocktail. But as the night wore on, I couldn't shake the feeling that Sarah was still in the back of my mind, lurking like a shadow. I tried to push her thoughts away, reminding myself that I was finally having fun and I deserved it. But every time, I felt a genuine smile on my face. A part of me wrestled with the guilt of moving on so quickly. Still, I managed to enjoy the rest of the night. When Mia leaned in to kiss me, I felt a rush of warmth. It was thrilling, intoxicating even, to be wanted again. I didn't know where it would lead, but for that moment, I surrendered to the excitement of new beginnings. Afterward, as I walked back to my apartment, I couldn't help but feel that maybe, just maybe, I was finally moving forward. Sarah's betrayal had hurt, but it had also pushed me to rediscover who I was. I was no longer just Jake and Sarah. I was Jake. I was reclaiming my identity, and nothing was going to stop me now. My heart was still healing, but I was ready to embrace whatever came next. As weeks passed, my life began to truly transform. Mia and I started seeing each other more regularly. Our dates turned from casual dinners to spontaneous adventures, exploring new towns, trying new cuisines, and even taking cooking classes together. I felt alive again, like the man I had lost during my marriage. Letting Sarah go had done wonders for my self-esteem, and I was grateful for the new experiences that filled the void she had left behind. But despite the excitement of this new chapter, Sarah was still lurking in the background. It was almost as if she could sense the joy I was finding without her. She would occasionally text me, asking about my life, trying to engage me in small talk. I ignored most of it, but sometimes I would respond with a curt reply, just to remind her that I was moving on. One evening, while Mia and I were enjoying a romantic dinner at a trendy rooftop bar overlooking the city, I received a message from Sarah. "Can we talk? I really want to make things right," it read. A part of me felt a rush of anger. How could she even think she had the right to barge back into my life after everything? "Who is it?" Mia asked, noticing the shift in my demeanor. "Just my ex," I replied, trying to brush it off. But I could feel the weight of the message pressing down on my chest. "Do you want to talk to her?" Mia asked, her voice gentle yet firm. I hesitated, torn between wanting to confront Sarah and knowing that I had moved on. "I don't think so. I'm really enjoying my time with you," I said, and it felt good to mean it. Mia smiled, and we shifted our focus back to the beautiful city skyline before us. But the nagging thoughts about Sarah lingered in the back of my mind. I kept thinking about how she had betrayed our marriage, how she had thrown away our life for a fling, and it fueled my resolve to keep moving forward. A few days later, Sarah showed up at my apartment again, this time unannounced. I had just come home after a long day at work, and as I opened the door to find her standing there, I felt a mix of frustration and exhaustion. "What do you want, Sarah?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady despite the storm of emotions churning inside me. "I just want to talk, Jake. Please, can you give me a chance?" She pleaded, her eyes searching my face for some sign of understanding. "Why? So you can tell me more." "Lies, you had your chance," I shot back, feeling the anger bubbling beneath the surface again. "I've changed. I've been going to therapy, and I'm realizing how much I took you for granted. I understand now why you're so angry," she said, her voice trembling. "I'm not angry because you cheated. I'm angry because you thought you could just waltz back into my life without consequences," I retorted, crossing my arms defensively. "I know I messed up," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "But I don't want to lose you. Can't we at least try again? I miss you so much, Jake." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words. A part of me wanted to believe her, to give her another chance, but I also knew that trust is hard to rebuild once it's been shattered. "You miss me now that I'm moving on," I said, my voice firm. "But what happens when things get tough again? You're not the same person I fell in love with." She looked down, her shoulders slumped in defeat. I felt a pang of guilt watching her like this, but I reminded myself of the pain she had caused. "I can't go back to that," I said, my voice steady. "I deserve better than a second chance for a relationship that was never built on trust." A flicker of anger crossed her expression, but it was quickly replaced by sadness. "I guess I don't have a choice," she said softly. "I just wanted you back." I closed the door gently, feeling the weight of our conversation linger in the air. For a moment I felt bad, but then I reminded myself of the progress I had made. I was no longer tied to her or the life we once shared. That night I confided in Mia about the encounter. We were sitting on my couch, sipping wine, and I could feel the tension in my shoulders slowly releasing as I shared what had happened. "I'm still struggling with this guilt, though," I admitted. "I don't want to feel sorry for her, but it's hard to ignore that history." Mia nodded, her expression understanding. "It's natural to feel that way, Jake. You had a life together, and it's tough to completely let go. But remember, you're not responsible for her happiness. She made her choices, and you're allowed to move on." Her words resonated with me, and I could feel the fog of guilt starting to lift. I knew I had to focus on my own happiness and the fresh start I was creating. As I began to embrace my newfound freedom, Sarah's attempts to reach out diminished. I realized she was starting to accept that I really was moving on, and I felt a sense of satisfaction. I was reclaiming my life, and it was exhilarating. Yet there was still this lingering question in the back of my mind. What if she really had changed? I pushed it aside, refusing to let doubt creep in. I was determined to stick to my path, one that was filled with laughter, adventure, and the promise of new beginnings. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was thriving, and I wasn't going to let anything or anyone take that away from me. As the days turned into weeks, I found myself settling into a new routine that revolved around my own needs and desires. I didn't just want to survive. I wanted to thrive, and I began to realize how much I had neglected myself during my marriage to Sarah. My evenings were filled with laughter, good food, and the company of friends who appreciated me for who I was, free from the weight of someone else's choices. Mia and I grew closer as we spent more time together. Our connection deepened in a way that felt effortless. We shared our dreams and fears, and I found myself opening up to her in ways I hadn't thought possible after my experience with Sarah. It was refreshing to be with someone who was genuinely interested in building a relationship based on mutual respect and trust. One Friday evening, Mia suggested we host a dinner party with some of our friends. I was excited about the idea. It was an opportunity to bring the people I had grown to care about together, and it felt like a celebration of how far I had come. As we planned the menu, I could feel the excitement bubbling within me. On the night of the dinner party, the atmosphere was electric. The table was beautifully set, adorned with candles and flowers, and the aroma of delicious food filled the air. As friends arrived, laughter and chatter erupted, creating a warm and inviting ambience. I was beaming with pride, grateful for the connections I had forged and the life I was living. But as the evening unfolded, I caught a glimpse of Sarah lurking outside our apartment building. I hadn't seen her in weeks, and for a moment I felt a jolt of anxiety. My heart raced as I tried to shake off the unease. I quickly turned my attention back to my friends, focusing on the conversations and laughter that surrounded me. I wasn't going to let her ruin this moment. Yet I couldn't ignore the sight of her standing there, looking lost and desperate. I forced myself to stay present, laughing and enjoying the company of my friends. But in the back of my mind, I kept thinking about how she had once been a part of my life, how we had shared moments like this, and how quickly everything had changed. As the night wore on, my phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "Can we please talk? I need to explain myself." I felt a wave of anger wash over me. I quickly silenced my phone, determined not to let her disrupt. The joy of the evening. My friends were chatting about travel plans and upcoming events, and I wanted to be fully engaged, but the unease remained, gnawing at me. I couldn't shake the feeling that Sarah was trying to claw her way back into my life. I excused myself from the table, stepping out onto the balcony for some fresh air. I needed a moment to gather my thoughts. As I stood there, I saw Sarah pacing in the street below. My heart was pounding in my chest. It was surreal. The woman I had loved, the woman who had betrayed me, was standing there hoping for another chance. I felt a rush of conflicting emotions, anger, sadness, and a flicker of nostalgia, but I quickly reminded myself of all the pain she had caused. Mia came out to join me, sensing my tension. "Hey, you okay?" she asked, her concern evident. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "It's just Sarah. She's down there and I don't know what to do. Do you want to talk to her?" Mia asked, her tone gentle. "No, I don't want to open that door again. She had her chance. And she blew it. I'm done with the past." Mia nodded, offering me a supportive smile. "You're stronger than you think, Jake. You've built something great for yourself and you don't have to let her back in." Her words resonated with me, reinforcing my resolve. I was ready to move forward, to embrace the life I had created without Sarah. I took a deep breath and stepped back inside, leaving the weight of my past behind me. The rest of the evening was magical. We shared stories, laughter, and delicious food. My friends celebrated with me, and as I looked around the room, I felt a sense of belonging. I realized how much I had gained by letting go of what had held me back for so long. Later that night, after the last of our guests had left, Mia and I found ourselves sitting on the couch, sipping wine and reminiscing about the evening. She looked at me with those warm eyes, and I felt a rush of gratitude. "You've come so far, Jake," she said softly. "You should be proud of yourself." "I am," I admitted, feeling the weight of her words. "I never thought I could feel this way again after everything that happened with Sarah, but you've made it easy to let go and just be myself." As we settled into a comfortable closeness, I knew I was ready to embrace whatever came next. I had faced my past, and now it felt like I was stepping into a future filled with possibilities. But just as I was starting to feel at ease, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a call from Sarah. I glanced at it, feeling my heart race. Should I answer? But then I thought about the progress I had made, the happiness I had found. I let it ring and then went back to enjoying the moment with Mia. I was done playing games, and I had no intention of letting her disturbance into my life again. I had chosen this path, one that led me away from her and toward a brighter future. I was finally in control of my life, and I wasn't going to let anything derail that. As the weeks turned into months, I continued to thrive in my new life. Mia and I grew closer, and I found myself not just enjoying our time together but also developing genuine feelings for her. She brought a lightness to my life that I hadn't realized I had been missing. We explored new restaurants, traveled to nearby cities for weekend getaways, and enjoyed quiet nights filled with laughter and connection. One night, as we shared a bottle of wine on my balcony, overlooking the city lights, I felt compelled to share my journey with her. You know, it's hard to believe where I was a year ago. I felt so lost and trapped. I admitted, looking into her eyes. She nodded, her expression softening. You've made such incredible strides, Jake. It's inspiring to see how you've reclaimed your life. Honestly, it wasn't just about getting over Sarah. It was about rediscovering who I am. I had forgotten what I loved, what made me happy, I explained, feeling a wave of vulnerability wash over me. You've been a huge part of that. Mia smiled, her eyes sparkling in the dim light. I'm glad I could be here for you. You deserve every bit of happiness you're experiencing. Our conversation deepened, and I knew I was ready to take the next step in our relationship. I leaned closer, looking her in the eye. I want you to know that I'm all in, Mia. I'm ready to embrace whatever we can build together. She looked surprised but delighted. I feel the same way, Jake. I didn't want to rush anything, but I'm so glad to hear you say that. With those words exchanged, I felt a sense of relief and excitement. I knew that moving forward didn't mean forgetting my past. It meant learning from it and allowing it to shape my future in a positive way. But just as I was settling into this new chapter, Sarah resurfaced again. One afternoon, I received an unexpected email from her. The subject line simply read, "Can we talk?" My heart raced as I opened it. In her message, she expressed regret and wrote about how she had been working on herself and wanted to apologize for everything that had happened between us. She said she had been doing some soul-searching and realized the value of what we had lost. I felt a mix of emotions stir within me. A part of me wanted to feel sympathy, to understand her struggle, but I quickly reminded myself of the betrayal that had shattered my trust. I took a deep breath, knowing that I had come too far to let her back into my life. I typed up a response, carefully choosing my words. Sarah, I appreciate your message and the honesty in your words. However, I've moved on from what we had. I wish you the best as you continue your journey, but I need to prioritize my happiness and my future. I hope you can respect that. Hitting send felt liberating. It was a final closure, a way to acknowledge the past while firmly establishing my boundaries. I was ready to keep moving forward with Mia by my side. As the weeks rolled on, I focused on my relationship with Mia, and we continued to build something beautiful together. We shared experiences, laughter, and even some occasional misadventures. I felt alive again, fully engaged in life, and ready to embrace what lay ahead. One evening, while strolling through a park, we stopped to watch the sunset. The sky was painted in hues of orange and pink, and it felt magical. I turned to Mia, my heart swelling with affection. You've brought so much joy into my life. Thank you for being you, I said earnestly. She smiled, and as our eyes locked, I leaned in and kissed her gently. It was tender and sweet, and in that moment I knew I had made the right choice. I had allowed myself to heal, to grow, and to love again. Life had thrown me a curveball, but I had learned to navigate through the storm and come out stronger on the other side. I had faced the hurt, confronted my past, and emerged with a renewed sense of self. As we walked hand in hand, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the journey I had taken. I had reclaimed my identity and found a love that was based on trust and mutual respect. Sarah was a chapter in my life that had served its purpose, but I was ready to write a new story, one filled with hope, happiness, and all the possibilities that lay ahead. I was finally at peace, and I knew that the future was bright.